Thank you for joining. This is the third video of the tour of SAS Studio. So in the first video, we went over the toolbar. In the second video, we went over the navigation pane. And then this third video, we'll be walking through the main work area, which is this main area of SAS Studio, and then as well as the code editor. So the work area is used to display your code, data, tasks, logs, and results. This work area is always displayed and cannot be closed. As you open items, they are added to the work area and windows are in a tabbed interface. So we're going to now open that demo program we created in the last session. So in the Explorer section of the navigation pane, which is here, I'm going to Home and then the Workspace, and then we had created the SAS Programs folder in this demo.sas program. So I'm going to double click this to open it. And now we'll see a tab was added for the new program, or demo.sas, and we can see the code here. And then on the right-hand side, there is the log. So I'm just going to move the log over a little bit to the side so we can see more. And then you can see I'm closing the navigation pane a little bit. So here we had created this My Workspace library, and we had done that within the library section of the navigation pane by using the new library interface. But let's add a live name statement to our code. So then in the future, we can create it by running it. So I'm going to type in live name to create that library. And you can see the autocomplete is popping up live name here. And then I'm going to do space, and you can see autocomplete here then suggest different statement options. And if you want to turn off autocomplete, you can do that by going to options and then preferences in the toolbar. So let's call this the same thing. So we're going to call this, I'm just going to highlight this live breath, copy it with Control-C and paste it up here. And then we're going to go to the Explorer section of the navigation pane. And so remember this fish.query is in the SAS datasets folder. So quick little way of adding that path is I can right click this fish query dataset and then go insert as path. And then here's the path, but we don't need the dataset name. So I deleted that. And there's our library. Another way to get the path for the folder is to right click the folder and then go to properties. And you can just copy it here and then paste it into your code. Or you can also do insert as path, and then it'll also insert it there too. So now we have the My Workspace library defined up here. So in the future, if we log back into SAS Studio, we need to redefine the library. It'll be in our code. And then I also want to define a second library, another output data set library, because I want to output the final data set in this output files folder. So let's add another library. So you can see live name auto populates. So I'm going to double click that just to show you how you can use autocomplete. And then we're going to type in the live breath. Let's call it final data sets. So final DS and then quote. And then here we can do insert as path. It's a slick way of doing it. And so now we have our two libraries. So if I just highlight the top two lines and click run, it'll just run that selected code. So if I highlight it and click the running person, you can see in the log that just those two lines ran. And we've successfully defined those libraries. So if I go to the library section, there's final DS. You can see there aren't any data sets there yet. And here's my workspace. And there's that same fish query. And if I expand fish query, I can see the columns. And if I double click it, you can see the data set. All right, so I'm going to save this program because I want to save those changes we just made of adding those two live name statements. Click Save. Now, the next thing I want to do is let's output a data set to this final DS library. So this is just to demonstrate how SAS Studio works, but let's subset this fish query data set and just select a certain species. So let's do a data step. This isn't necessarily the most efficient way of doing something, but just to show you how this works. So if I type in, we want to output it to final DS, so then it will show up under output files folder. And let's call this fish final, and then let's do set. So we're going to read in the so as I typed in my, automatically popped up this my workspace library. So I'm going to double click that and then do dot. And it auto populates all of the tables that are available in that library. And it's just the one fish query. So I'm going to click that. And now let's subset it. So we can say let's say if species equals pike. Because let's open this again. So what I'm saying is we're just selecting where the species column is pike, so it should return one row. I'm going to close that table. So now to run the whole program, I'm not going to select any code. I'm just going to put my cursor on a blank line and click the running person to run the entire program. And now let's look at the log. So here you can see the results. The HTML results are shown for the proc means procedure, which produces the summary statistics. But let's look at the log to make sure there are no errors or warnings. No errors and no warnings. See lots of notes, and we see in that final DS fish final data set there's one observation as expected. And then if we click the output data set tab, it's going to expand this a little bit. So we can see more of it in this final DS fish final data set. We see the one row. And then if I click this down arrow next to that, you can see all the other output data sets produced in the program. So you can click the different data sets and look at the intermediate data sets. But okay, so everything is as expected. So now I'm going to save the program because the code is working great. One other thing to point out is that as we're typing, for instance, this data step at the bottom in line 25, if we had syntax help, or if we needed syntax help, you can just put your cursor over part of the code, and it will then, for instance, show you the syntax for a data step. And then if it's not showing up, you can also right-click it and then go to syntax help, and then you can expand it to show more of the syntax. And then, so you can see here, we have some extra lines and a line for these line breaks. Like we don't need these extra lines. The code's not indented. So to help with the formatting of the code, in the top upper right-hand side of the program, there's this format code icon. So if I click that, it automatically formats the code and cleans up the line breaks and automatically indents the code. So now it's just easier to read and it's fewer lines. So I'm going to click save again. And yeah, those are the main things to point out. And then if, for instance, you did want to turn off like the auto completion of the code, again, you can go to options in this toolbar and then preferences. And then under editors, you can go to editor options. And this is where you can turn off like show autocomplete list. You could turn off showing the line numbers. And if you want to increase or decrease the number of rows shown per page or the number of columns, that's where you can change all these options. And these are gone through in more detail in the first video. Well, thank you for joining, and thank you for tuning in for these 3 videos.